Yippee-yi-yo-ki-yay, galloping all the way, great big star on his chest. Out from all of the rest, fastest gun in the West. Yippee-yi-yo-ki-yay, riding around your way, here comes quick from McGraw. The highfalutin'est, fastest shootin'est cowboy you ever saw. That's quick from McGraw.
(9:10). Good morning this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Sherman, the Shermanator, from the Sherman Project, the Scott Sherman Project. 9 to midnight here on the Big 550 KTRS. Week 2, how'd we do?
I think it's going well.
Hey, that's good. What has management said to you?
Nothing, which means it's going great.
They won't say anything to you.
Not till I screw up.
No, even after you screw up, they don't tell you.
Really?
Yeah, no, the management really doesn't even know we exist.
Do they listen?
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I guess.
I think it's good. It's fun. It's
What's been the best part and the worst part?
I think the worst part is that feeling that the show isn't ready yet.
Right.
And then the best part is that 30 seconds right before you start, when you know that here we go and whatever it is, it's going to happen.
I'm locked and loaded and I'm just jumping out of the plane and there's nothing I can do about it.
It's very much like a roller coaster ride,
Yes, it
waiting, and then as you first get that glimpse of what happens on the first dip, and it goes, that's awful. And then when you're in it going up, you're like, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Strap it in.
No matter how bad the show is, it always ends.
That's right.
Midnight always comes. No matter how awful it is, the show always ends.
When it feels like I don't remember what happened, that's the best feeling. At 12:01, where it's like, we're done already?
That's what your girlfriend was saying to me earlier.
Is that
Hey-o. Right? All right. We're talking 80s movies behind the scenes here. I want to talk more 80s movies because
cool.
80s movies really is something that is maligned, but we were just off the top of our heads coming up with movie after movie that was fantastic. But I want to get to this Larry Connors thing first. This is kind of a big deal. Maybe not for everybody, but for people in the broadcast world. They won't let you work unless they force you to sign a non-compete clause that basically says at any time, anywhere, any shape, anytime we decide to let you go, you cannot work for another radio station, television station, media outlet, internet outlet, something that hasn't even been invented outlet, 6 months, a year, whatever.
Yep.
My personal situation, I signed a contract. The contract ended. We both fulfilled our, right? It ended whatever day it was, right? It was a whatever year contract. It ended. The local radio station, I won't tell you if it was here or in town, but
Do 100-year-old people listen to it?
A lot of old people listen to it. Said you can't work anywhere for 6 months. And I was like, but the contract's over with. You don't want to re-sign me. We're both going to go our separate ways. No, you can't work anywhere for six months. I was like, how can that be? I live in the great state of Missouri where I keep voting for elected officials who are for freedom.
Freedom of contract to bind you into slavery.
Freedom for companies to keep me from working for 6 months. So I couldn't come over here for 6 months.
Is this a here's how it works deal at this point? Because I can jump in and do the here's how it works.
So I'm very interested in this Larry Connors thing.
Right.
Because for whatever reason, Larry Connors he was not drunk driving. It wasn't a drug deal. It wasn't anything nefarious. He said something on a Facebook page that management didn't like.
Oops, he had an opinion.
Right.
Wow.
Right. And
for a journalist. Wait, what?
So therefore he was since fired, and now they're saying he's not allowed to work for a year.
So you spelled out what the dilemma for the broadcaster or anyone that's faced with a contract dilemma. They put it in front of you and say, here, sign this. What if I don't? You don't work here.
Right.
So you can negotiate it depending on how much juice you have. You might be able to get stuff out, but you don't have enough juice to get everything out of there. So they put non-compete clauses in, not just in broadcaster contracts or TV journalist contracts, but they have them in all kinds of contracts, salespeople contracts. Anybody who signs a contract with a company, you can bet that the lawyers for the company have put some kind of non-compete, non-solicitation clause in there. When you're not soliciting business, the non-compete is really important, especially when you work in a media market, and that's why people know you.
Right.
You're not going to, it's not like Larry Connors can shuffle off to Buffalo and get the lead job and get more money because why do they know him?
Right.
He made that station. In a way, he did. So the non-competes, the courts have upheld them as being reasonable in geography and reasonable in time. About a year is about reasonable, even in the broadcast industry. However, there's been a movement afoot in broadcasting amongst some of the, I guess, more northeastern markets in Boston, in Massachusetts, and in New York, Albany, not New York City, where courts have said these are unreasonable because these people have no other place to work. You're starving them out. First, you forced them to sign it. It's
Right.
like, well, I don't like 6 months. How about 1 month? No, sign it, take
Right.
it or leave it.
Right.
That's not negotiating. That's
You can negotiate everything except when they don't want you,
yeah.
you can't work anywhere else. I mean,
That's a hostage situation.
Imagine going into a dating situation. Hi, I like you. I like you too. Let's start dating. Okay, great. When we break up, I can break up with you and I can date anybody I want. But you can't date anybody for a year.
Wait a minute. That's what happens every time I break up with someone. They have a new boyfriend.
But there's no clause. Nobody wants
no agreement
to date you for a while.
That's true.
But I mean, the fact that Larry Connors is being forced in 2013 and he's not allowed to work is criminal.
Maybe so. Let me talk about the trend, and then let me talk about what Larry Connors is trying to do in his case. The trend is that in Massachusetts, and I know, left-wing People's Republic of Massachusetts, their legislature has said that those non-compete agreements in broadcasting contracts are void because they've essentially shut people out from working at all. It's a shutdown. And the shutdown period doesn't just take money out of their pocket, it kills their momentum. Because when you're out of sight, you're out of mind.
Right.
And people don't know who you are.
Right.
And you're like, oh, that guy used to be Larry Connors.
Right.
Remember, see that poor schlub over there?
Right.
At the poker room? He used to be a big deal, and now he's not. The fact is, people want to hire him, but they can't hire him because of the agreement with the old employer.
Right.
New York, they've had a court case coming out of Albany, out of Western New York, that says you can, or upstate New York, that says that those things are unreasonable in that particular type of business. Well, Larry Connors' argument is this. KMOV violated. They breached the entirety of my contract. They fired me for a made-up reason, and so by their action of breaching my contract, the entire thing is void. Throw it all out, Judge, including that non-compete clause. Baby goes out with the bathwater, and then he can work again. That's his argument. His argument, as best I can
His
see,
argument isn't the non-compete's unconstitutional. His
right.
argument is that they voided the contract,
That's
which
right.
means all of the contract is voided.
He's not challenging it because the Missouri Supreme Court just had a case 2 months ago on non-compete clauses. They were involved sales reps and things like that, and they said reasonable to within time. And in that one, I think it was a year, and they said year was okay, and on distance, and it was like a 50-mile radius. So the argument that's being made in the Northeast on the broadcast contracts is not going to get to Missouri. It's a lot like styles and fashion.
All these people
doesn't get here for a while.
All these people, all these executives, all these legislators,
Yes.
all these geniuses. Oh, competition's good. Competition's good. Oh, by the way, you want to come work for me? You're not allowed to compete with anybody with me for 1 year.
Fake free market capitalists.
It's outrageous.
They're free market capitalists as long as they control the market.
Right.
As long as they can puppet you and tell you what to do,
Right.
they're all for a free market. But when it's real competition, they don't like it, such as this. A lot of stations have come to broadcasting people and said, hey, come to L.A., come to New York, come to the network. And the locals have said, we have that person under contract. instead of trying to match the price or try to beat the price,
Right.
they don't want the price. What they want is locked in. Then when they get rid of that person, they don't want them going to the competing station and doing what real competition is. Let's say Larry Connors goes to 5, or he goes to 2, or he goes to 11,
Right.
or he goes to 30, and they decide they're going to have news there.
Right.
KMOV, that all of a sudden they hate him. Oh, Larry Connors, he said something about President Obama. Ooh.
Yeah, could you imagine if Major League Baseball, if they said, Albert Pujols, you're not allowed to play anywhere for a year, right? They would be laughed out of the business.
Yeah, guess what? Curt Flood. This is how the reserve clause used to work in Major League Baseball,
Right.
where you signed the contract. There was a contract. What if you didn't sign it? Go sell insurance.
Right.
Go sell shoes. And then when you did sign the contract, you were the property of that team. And if you opted out, you had to sit out for an entire year. It took Curt Flood, who never got any due,
Right.
to end up breaking the reserve clause.
I've had stations say to me, well, we're out there promoting your brand. We're out there, making you known. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm confused. Where did you put that billboard up of me? Where did you invest in my career? Where's the television commercial about McGraw-Millhaven or the ads really? Because you're promoting me. Really? You guys are out promoting me?
Yeah,
it's a joke.
And with Channel 4, and I didn't grow up here, you didn't grow up here, but he's iconic. So for people that knew him at whatever station, he grew that brand. And it's like Larry Connors carried that piano to the top of the stairs. Once it got put up there and all the heavy lifting was done, KMOV decided, oh, we don't like the way you play that piano.
Right.
So guess what we're going to do? We're going to find somebody else to play the piano.
But the
piano's upstairs.
But the fact is they don't want him anymore. Okay?
They think he sucks.
They have a right not to want him
that's
anymore.
True.
But they don't have a right to say no one else can have you either.
They shouldn't, but they do. And what they're saying is he sucks so bad that we don't want him on any other stations competing against us.
It's so criminal.
It's
right.
complete hypocrisy.
Right. So this is in the judge's chambers.
Yes.
And
the
judge has it, and in any day he's going to rule.
And Larry Connors has, if not the smartest lawyer, one of the smartest lawyers in town, Merle Silverstein. So he's going to know exactly what the rules are. The problem is from the Missouri Supreme Court on down, the United States Supreme Court on down, except for what the legislature could change, or except for what...
Well, the legislature is all about freedom.
They are.
They're all about freedom, and they're all about getting government off your back. So, by golly, they should be in favor of this.
If it's a 1-year non-compete, that's going to be considered de facto legal in Missouri.
Well,
unless he can knock the whole thing out, unless he can knock this whole contract out and win the breach and say, forget about the clause, the whole thing crumbles, just tear it up, Judge, he's going to lose on the non-compete. Meanwhile, isn't the clock been ticking? It's been like 6 months?
Well, I think he can't work through May of 2014. That's the other thing. They just try and stall for as long as possible. Right. That's why I don't watch Channel 4 News. Channel 4 News refuses to let Larry Connors work. I refuse to watch Channel 4 News.
Claire's
so my
there.
Boycott.
What about Claire
I
Kellett?
don't watch it. I don't watch Channel 4 News because I'm boycotting it because they're not allowing Larry Connors to work. So why should I watch them if they're it's a solidarity pact of one with Larry Connors in that it's about as un-American as can be to force somebody not to work.
I'm for freedom of contract.
Wait a minute. We have the House of Representatives taking money out of the food stamp program because they want people to work. And here they are upholding companies that are forcing people not to work. It makes no sense.
Right. And there's a disparity in negotiating. If Larry Connors doesn't have the juice to get that knocked out, nobody does.
All right. That's Steve Cochran. That's not Steve Cochran.
Hey! What are you doing to me there, buddy?
That was not Steve Cochran either. That's Scott Sherman. He hosts the Scott Sherman Experience here 9 to midnight, the Big 550 KTRS. He's also our resident lawyer. We're going to come back and talk 80s movies, a little 80s movies.
Right on, dude. Party on.
Party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth. Was that an 80s movie? It was 90s. Wayne and Garth was 90s.
Whatever.
Yeah. All right. We'll come back and talk about that. Yesterday, did you miss it? We had Jennifer Williams on the show. She, of course, started St. Louis Closet Company out of her garage, told a great story about how she quit 2 of her 3 restaurant jobs and started St. Louis Closet Company out of her garage. She wanted to become a small business owner, and she did. I asked her, when did she know she was successful? 20 years later, she says, I'll let you know. That's the trials and tribulations of a local small business. Somehow earlier today, we got on some 80s movie rant, and we are continuing the 80s movies rant. And just off the top of our head, the list of 80s movies, one we were talking about that doesn't get enough attention was Risky Business. I mean, Risky Business was, and it seems like, I mean, movies last today in the movie theaters for 2 weeks, if that.
Right.
And then they're off, then they're gone, then in 2 or 3 months or 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks, then they show up on demand, and then another couple of weeks, and they show up on your rental or your download, and then the end of the line is cable or HBO or Showtime or whatever else, and then it's out and then it's whatever it is.
Red boxed.
Right. So, but years ago, movies would stick around for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 2 months. So you would have a summer movie, and you would say, have you seen this movie yet? No, we haven't gotten around to it. We're going next week.
And people would be quoting in high school the lines, the most quotable movies. Risky Business, there's 100 of them. I'm thinking, I got a trig midterm in the morning, and I'm being chased by Guido, the killer pimp. It's Curtis Armstrong. Who's the U-boat commander when he puts the Porsche in Lake Michigan?
But I think that 80s movies, we were talking about this off the air.
Yeah.
There aren't too many quotable 70s movies.
Yeah, right. Some,
not a lot, but the 80s hit, and all of a sudden it was quote after quote after quote. And I don't know if it was just that's all we did was watch these movies. It was the first time you could then see them in the movie theater, and then a year later you'd see them on cable, so you've seen it 14 times, so you'll be able to quote it. I don't know.
They're funny. I mean, it started with Animal House, which is in the 70s, but you got Stripes. You've got Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You've got Risky Business. You've got 16 Candles. All of these movies. Caddyshack. I mean, Caddyshack, you can almost do the entire movie with a friend of yours. Just do it on the air.
I mean, right there are legendary movies.
Yeah.
I mean, every single one of those movies, whether you like them or not, legendary movies.
The first half of Stripes might be the funniest, just silly comedy ever.
We were mentioning earlier Vision Quest. Remember Vision Quest?
There was a guy with the plastic suit, and then there was a guy with a mohawk.
Yeah.
And he had to wrestle Matthew Modine,
and actually,
he's jumping rope with the plastic suit on.
Yes, exactly. Yes, with Linda Fiorentino. Remember her? Yeah.
If he was a chick, she would have had an eating disorder.
And Mr. Cataran.
The guy he was trying to hit a vision quest.
He had a vision quest. Remember the movie
All the Right Moves?
All the Right Moves.
Tom Cruise.
You
remember the high school? What was the fictitious high school?
Well, do you know who the mean coach was? Was Craig T. Nelson.
And Pipe. Remember that?
Yeah. And his girlfriend was Leah Thompson. Yeah. Who,
check out Mr. Skin on that. I'm just saying.
She
went Mr. Skin.
She won some award for that. She was in the band.
St. Elmo's Fire.
Fire.
The Brat Pack kids.
That was actually a pretty good movie.
Weird Science.
With Kelly LeBrock.
Yeah, and Anthony Michael Hall, who was a big star in the 80s, and Robert Downey Jr.'s in that.
Robert Downey Jr. was. How about the movie? I was trying to tell these guys. Remember that movie Less Than Zero?
The Coke movie?
Yeah,
that was.
How
horrible.
good was that movie?
It was wild. Yeah, and then Jamie Gertz.
Is in that. Andrew McCarthy, and it was really the first sort of college drug scene look, a sobering look at teenage and young adult drug use.
Yep. Wall Street? Wasn't that in the 80s?
Wall Street actually stands the test of time. Now, again, all of these movies have plot, they have characters, they have memorable characters. I'm sorry, you go on Netflix now and look at movies of the last 2 or 3 or 5 years. I get confused. Bang them up, shoot them up, blow them up. There's no difference between any of these movies.
Nah, it's all CGI'd. And then the people that are in the movies, it's just them in the movie. It's like, there's that guy, and he's just going to do some stuff. Now, I don't hate all movies that are new, but the ones that I'm thinking of, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. How many times did you watch that?
But that's my point. They don't make movies like that. And I know I sound like an 85-year-old grandfather.
Yeah, no, right.
But the truth is they don't make movies today. I love to go to the movies.
Yep.
I love to go and sit and just, lose myself in the movie.
Yeah.
But there's no reason to go see any of these movies.
And the best writing now is on television.
No question. No question. That's why Breaking Bad
is just
and the Killings and the
Boardwalk
Dexter,
Empire.
right? Because that's the only place
for character development.
Yeah. No question.
Okay. My absolute favorite. Say you have to watch one movie from the 80s for the rest of your life. That's the only movie you can watch from the 80s. Not the only movie you can watch. Which one do you watch?
I said this earlier. This movie. I don't know if it's because of where I was in my life when I first saw it, but I have seen it since. I have a friend of mine who I text with from time to time. They live out of town, and just randomly we will text each other lines from this movie.
Yeah.
And they know it, and I know it,
Yeah.
and it's this weird conversation I have with this dear friend of mine.
Same thing.
And it is the movie Stand By Me.
Okay.
Which is so ridiculously good.
It's a great movie.
That you can watch it as a 15-year-old, and then you can watch it as a 25-year-old, and you can watch it as a 46-year-old, and the movie is changed. The movie stayed exactly the same.
That's right.
But your perspective of
it's like Catcher in the Rye.
Has changed and grown exponentially with that movie.
It's like reading. Okay, you didn't ask me, but I'll tell you mine.
Scott Sherman, what is your movie in the 80s?
I'm glad you asked me, McGraw. Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I can watch that movie 100 times. I know almost all the lines from it. Every character is great in it. And Sean Penn, it's the best thing I've ever seen him do. That Spicoli is one of the best characters of all time.
Damone was on with Martin the other day. I didn't know Cameron Crowe wrote that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he spent a year in high school, went back and pretended to be a high school senior for a year and just started writing notes.
Three more payments, gentlemen, and this beautiful brand new luxury sedan is all mine. Way to go, Hamilton. I mean, everything is funny. Scalper? Are you calling me a scalper? Gentlemen, I have
how many
service.
You've had you had Sean Penn.
Sean Penn.
Forrest Whitaker.
Yep. Judge Reinhold. Phoebe Cates.
Phoebe Cates right there makes it.
Mr. Skin.
Now I know why you want to watch that movie for all time.
Yes. Well, it's got everything.
It's
got Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's great in it.
Yes.
It's got Eric Stoltz is in it. It's got a cameo. What's his name's in it too? Nicolas Cage is in it.
Yes.
He's what's his name's buddy.
Yeah.
And it's just every part of it is hysterical. And if you grew up in the 80s and you don't like that movie, don't talk to me.
How about Say Anything? Another Cameron Crowe movie. Did you ever see that movie?
Stalker with the boombox.
Yeah. I love that movie.
I know.
That scene at the Gas and Sip on a Saturday night is one of the great scenes.
It's very cool. Wait, you said something that you said about Stand By Me. Then I'm thinking Rob Reiner. We forgot one. Spinal Tap.
This is Spinal Tap.
How great is that movie?
Again,
Princess Bride.
Princess Bride
is tremendous.
How great is that movie? But again, all of these movies.
Yeah.
I defy anybody to take the 2000s, right? Which take from 2000 to 2010.
Yep.
And name for me legendary, memorable movies. There's one or two, but by no means are there the list.
Not stuff where you go on Facebook and just quote lines or call your friend on. I got my buddy Brendan lives in California, and we went to high school together. All I'll get from him, he'll just put something on there and he'll be like, "Hey Rat, isn't this great?" And it's just and the whole thing starts. Don't forget to put on side 2 of Led Zeppelin 4. On the date.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You left your wallet at my house.
That's Scott Sherman, who is quoting lines from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Something wrong with
making sure it's safe for the radio before I can see your head spinning, making sure that it's safe for radio.
I had to edit myself, and then I lost the lines because there's too much swear words.
And we'll tell you the movie that Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel independently came to their own conclusion as the best movie of the 80s. They independently when asked in 1990,
Roadhouse.
what's the best movie of the 80s? They both independently came up with this movie, a movie we haven't even touched on yet.
Okay.
Scott Sherman, who's your sponsor?
Oh, St. Louis Home Retention Group. You know, talking about Ben Bernanke, whether he's going to be the head of the Fed and interest rates. Well, you forget, went through a big problem where the entire financial industry just crumbled. People had houses then, had mortgages then, lost your job, and the mortgage company doesn't really care about whether or not you're having a hard time. They want to take your house. The amount of foreclosures is becoming more and more aggressive with these lenders, and some of the mortgage companies are selling them off to these sort of less than reputable mortgage servicers. Well, who can stop that? St. Louis Home Retention Group. Who can get your mortgage reduced legally? St. Louis Home Retention Group. No closing costs, no real long waiting periods. They stop the foreclosure process. And even if you're not facing foreclosure, if you've just lost equity, and who didn't lose equity, they have programs like the new HARP program that's been regenerated and expanded. They know how to do it. Local guys, over a 90% success rate, over 500 people who did not lose their homes and saving money. Call them. They will help you. They will save you money. And they're terrific guys. They will do what they're supposed to do. 636-527-5121, 636-527-5121, or stlouishomeretentiongroup.com.